This is the Dive Into Discovery podcast, where curiosity meets insight, and every conversation uncovers a new layer of understanding.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to try to really get to the bottom of nuclear fusion.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think everyone kind of has a basic idea of what fusion is. At least they've heard the promises.
Right.
Limitless clean energy.
Yeah.
But is it all hype?
Yeah.
We've got a ton of research here, and we're going to really break it down.
Absolutely.
So, I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptical.
Yeah.
But, even if it's not right around the corner,
Sure.
just the idea of recreating the power of the sun here on Earth is just...
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. And what's really captured my attention is how long we've been chasing this dream of creating a mini sun on Earth. It's been decades.
Right.
Scientists have been working on this for so long, trying to unlock this incredible energy source.
Right. And we know that stars are basically giant fusion reactors.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of us who maybe slept through high school physics, can you break down what fusion is?
Absolutely.
And how it's different from fission?
Sure. So, we're all pretty familiar with fission.
Right.
That's what powers our current nuclear plants.
Uh-huh.
But fusion is a whole different ballgame. So think of it this way. Fission is splitting atoms apart.
Okay.
Like you're breaking a cookie in half.
Okay.
Fusion, on the other hand, is taking those cookie crumbs and squeezing them back together to make something entirely new.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we're not breaking things apart.
Right.
We're putting them together.
Exactly. We're forcing the nuclei of hydrogen isotopes,
Okay.
specifically deuterium and tritium, to fuse together.
Right.
But there's a catch. To overcome the natural repulsion between those nuclei,
I was going to say.
you need insane temperatures.
Yeah.
We're talking over 100 million degrees Celsius.
100 million degrees. That's hotter than the core of the sun.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, isn't it?
No wonder it's such a challenge.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest hurdles we've been facing.
Wow. But, what makes it so appealing then?
Well, the allure is the sheer potential.
Yeah.
Just imagine clean energy, practically limitless fuel. We can get it from seawater.
Wow.
And minimal radioactive waste compared to fission.
So it really does sound pretty utopian.
It has the potential.
Yeah, so it's clean. It's abundant. It doesn't leave us with a radioactive mess.
Right.
How close are we to actually making this work? What does a fusion reactor even look like?
Okay, so there are two main approaches.
Right.
We've got magnetic confinement and inertial confinement.
Okay.
You with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so first up, magnetic confinement.
Okay.
Picture a giant donut-shaped chamber.
A giant donut.
Yeah, it's called a tokamak.
A tokamak.
Inside this chamber, superheated gas or plasma swirls around,
Okay.
held in place by powerful magnetic fields.
Oh.
And the goal is to squeeze and heat that plasma until the atoms fuse.
So we're using magnetic fields to bottle up a mini-sun. Okay, and what about the other approach?
Sure. So inertial confinement.
Uh-huh.
Think lasers.
Lasers.
Yeah. At the National Ignition Facility, they have these incredibly powerful lasers
Right.
that they use to blast tiny pellets of fusion fuel.
Wow.
It's like focusing the energy of a star onto a pinhead.
It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
It really is quite remarkable.
So the idea is to create a miniature explosion.
Right.
And that triggers fusion.
Exactly.
Wow. So if this technology is so promising, why haven't we solved our energy problems already?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
One of the biggest challenges is achieving what's called break-even,
Break even.
where the energy produced by fusion equals the energy we put in to get it started.
Okay.
It's all about efficiency.
Gotcha. So we're creating these mini suns.
Yes.
But they're energy hogs right now.
Yeah, you could say that.
How do scientists even measure how efficient a fusion reaction is?
They use something called the Q factor.
Q factor.
It's basically like calculating your return on investment.
Okay.
A Q factor above 1 means you're getting more energy out than you put in.
Uh-huh.
And that's the holy grail of fusion research.
Okay, so reaching a Q factor above 1.
Right.
That's the tipping point.
Yeah.
Where fusion becomes a viable energy source.
Exactly.
Are we anywhere close to that?
We're getting closer.
Okay.
It's tricky, though. It's like trying to control a miniature star.
Yeah.
This plasma is incredibly hot and unstable.
Unstable how? I mean...
Well, think of it like
Okay.
trying to hold a firefly in your hand.
Okay.
It's constantly moving, trying to escape the plasma in a fusion reactor.
Right.
It behaves similarly. You know,
Right.
it can wobble, it can touch the walls of the reactor,
Yeah.
and that disrupts the whole process.
Right, so it's a very delicate balancing act
It is.
of controlling this insanely hot plasma.
Exactly.
And what about the materials
Oh, yeah.
used in these reactors?
Good point.
They must have to withstand some incredible conditions.
Oh, you're absolutely right. We need materials that can handle temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun.
Oh, wow.
Constant bombardment by high-energy particles.
Okay.
Intense radiation. I mean,
Really?
it's a material scientist's dream and nightmare all rolled into one.
Wow. And finding those materials must be a huge challenge in itself.
It is. It really is. You know, we're talking about pushing the limits of material science here.
Uh-huh.
Researchers are experimenting with advanced alloys,
Okay.
ceramics, even materials that can self-heal from damage.
Self-healing materials. That sounds like science fiction becoming reality.
It is pretty amazing.
Wow.
But even with these advancements, material degradation is a major headache.
Okay.
It limits the lifespan of reactors
Right.
and drives up costs.
So we've got plasma control, we've got material durability,
Right.
and reaching that magical break-even point.
Yeah,
Those are some pretty daunting challenges.
they are.
What about the fuel itself?
Oh, good catch.
Isn't there something tricky about one of the hydrogen isotopes?
You're thinking of tritium.
Yeah.
Deuterium is plentiful. We can get it from seawater.
Right.
But tritium is radioactive and rare.
Oh?
We have to manufacture it, which adds another layer of complexity to the process.
So even though we're talking about this virtually limitless energy, the fuel itself poses a limitation.
It's a hurdle for sure.
Oh.
Researchers are exploring ways to breed tritium within the reactor itself,
Uh-huh.
but it's still an active area of research.
Okay.
And, you know, all of these challenges, they're interconnected.
Yeah.
It's like a giant scientific jigsaw puzzle.
It sounds like we're still piecing together that puzzle.
Yeah, we are.
But are there any signs that we're getting closer to the complete picture?
There are, actually. In 2022, the Joint European Torus, or GET,
Okay.
achieved a record amount of sustained fusion energy, 59 megajoules over 5 seconds.
I mean, is that enough to make us think that fusion is actually within reach?
It's definitely a reason for optimism. And it's not just government-funded projects making progress.
Right.
Private companies are jumping into the race as well.
Really?
Yeah, they're bringing fresh ideas and a lot of investment to the table.
That's really interesting. So what's driving their sudden interest in fusion?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
You know, there have been some key scientific breakthroughs.
Like the JT achievement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's also a growing sense of urgency around climate change
Right.
and the need for clean energy solutions.
Uh-huh.
And let's face it, the potential payoff is huge.
Yeah.
Whoever cracks fusion first is going to be sitting on a gold mine.
So it's a mix of idealism and good old-fashioned capitalism.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so we've got government labs, private companies, and even these international collaborations like ITER.
Right.
Speaking of ITER, what's the latest on that mega project?
Well, ITER, which stands for International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, is the biggest fusion experiment in the world,
Okay.
with 35 countries collaborating on its construction.
35 countries. That's incredible.
And really is a global effort.
What are they hoping to achieve with ITER?
Well, the main goal is to demonstrate the feasibility of fusion power on a larger scale.
Okay.
They're aiming for a Q factor of 10,
Wow.
meaning they want to produce 10 times more energy from fusion than they put in.
A Q factor of 10. That would be huge.
It would be a game changer. It would prove that fusion can be a viable energy source, not just in theory, but in practice.
Right. So ITER is like the ultimate test
Exactly.
for fusion.
Yes, it's the culmination of decades of research and development.
Oh.
And the world is watching very closely to see what happens.
So when can we expect to see results?
Well, the first plasma experiments are scheduled for 2025.
Okay.
But the full power experiments,
Right.
the ones that are really going to tell us if fusion is feasible,
Yeah.
those aren't expected to start until 2035.
So we still have a little bit of a wait.
We do.
But the anticipation is building.
It is. It feels like we're on the verge of something truly historic.
Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
The world is holding its breath, waiting to see if fusion will finally live up to its promise.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
The science of fusion,
Mm-hmm.
the different approaches, the challenges,
Yeah.
the major projects underway.
Absolutely.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
I'm starting to get a sense of the big picture, though.
That's great to hear. You know, it's a complex topic,
Yeah.
but it's one that's worth understanding given its potential impact on our future.
For sure. And speaking of the future,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time to shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about the potential economic impact of fusion energy.
Right.
So if and when fusion becomes a reality,
Right.
how could it transform our world?
Well, the economic implications are vast.
Okay.
I mean, just imagine a world where electricity is cheap and abundant and produced without greenhouse gas emissions.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the promise of fusion.
But how would it actually play out?
Well, think about it. Fusion could drastically reduce our reliance on fossil fuels,
Okay.
which would lead to a drop in oil and gas prices.
Right.
Countries dependent on fossil fuel exports would have to adapt, and new economic powerhouses could emerge.
That's a huge geopolitical shift.
It would be.
And what about everyday people?
Yeah.
How would fusion impact our lives?
So the cost of electricity would plummet,
Okay.
leading to lower energy bills
Right.
and potentially a surge in economic growth.
Wow.
New industries would emerge.
Yeah.
The existing ones would be transformed, and there would be a huge demand for skilled workers in fields related to fusion technology.
So we're talking about a potential economic boom
Yeah,
driven by clean energy.
exactly. It's a tantalizing prospect.
Yeah, it really is.
But, you know, we also need to consider the potential downsides. The development of fusion technology requires a lot of upfront investment,
Right.
and the transition to a fusion-based economy would require massive infrastructure changes.
It's not going to happen overnight, that's for sure.
No, it won't. But the potential rewards are significant enough to warrant the investment and effort.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about some specific industries
Right.
that might be impacted by fusion energy.
Sure.
Where do you see the biggest potential for disruption?
Transportation immediately comes to mind.
Okay.
Fusion-powered electric vehicles could revolutionize the automotive industry.
How so?
Imagine cars with unlimited range,
Wow.
no need for charging stations.
That's a game changer.
It wouldn't be.
No more range anxiety.
Right.
Massive reduction in carbon emissions.
Exactly.
And it's not just cars, right?
No, we're talking about ships, planes, maybe even trains powered by fusion.
Wow.
It could completely reshape how we travel
Right.
and transport goods.
So fusion could be the key to a more sustainable transportation system.
It certainly has the potential. Wow. And it's not just transportation.
No, you're right.
Fusion could revolutionize manufacturing, agriculture, even space exploration.
Absolutely.
Space exploration.
Yeah, think about it. Fusion could provide the power needed for long-duration space missions, maybe even permanent bases on other planets.
Wow.
It's about unlocking possibilities that we can only dream of right now.
It sounds like fusion could have a ripple effect across countless industries.
It really could.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the human element.
Sure.
What does the future hold for the scientists and engineers working on fusion?
It's a demanding field, no doubt.
I can imagine.
You need expertise in areas like plasma physics, material science engineering.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart.
But it must be incredibly rewarding as well.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's a field driven by passion, a desire to make a real difference in the world.
Right.
These researchers are working on something truly transformative.
Yeah.
They're not just doing a job.
They're answering a calling.
That's inspiring.
It is.
And with all the recent advancements,
Mm-hmm.
I bet there's a growing sense of optimism in the field.
Definitely. The achievements at JT,
Right.
the growing investment from the private sector,
Yeah.
it's all injected a lot of energy and excitement into the fusion community.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
So
correct.
for any aspiring young scientists out there
Mm-hmm.
who are fascinated by the idea of creating clean energy
Right.
from miniature suns,
Yeah.
fusion might be the perfect field to dive into.
Absolutely. It's a field with a bright future, and the challenges are as big as the rewards.
Now, speaking of challenges, let's address some of the skepticism surrounding fusion research.
Okay.
I've heard people say that fusion is always 30 years away
Right.
and will never be feasible.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
Well, it's understandable why people are skeptical.
Right.
Fusion research has a long history of big promises and missed deadlines. But it's important to remember that scientific breakthroughs take time.
Yeah.
And fusion is pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's not a straight line from idea to reality.
Exactly.
There are bound to be setbacks along the way.
For sure. And fusion is incredibly complex.
Right.
But the recent progress, like the record energy output at JT, it shows that we're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
It's not just hype. There's real substance behind the optimism.
And the growing interest from private companies
Right.
suggests that they see a real path to making fusion commercially viable.
They do. They're not just throwing money at a pipe dream.
Okay.
They see the potential, and they're willing to invest in making it a reality.
But what about the cost?
Yeah.
Fusion research is notoriously expensive.
It is.
Can we realistically afford to pursue this technology on a large scale?
It's true that fusion research is a significant investment, but we also need to consider the cost of inaction.
Okay.
Climate change is already costing us trillions of dollars in damages.
Right.
And those costs will only continue to rise.
So investing in fusion could be seen as an investment in our future.
Exactly.
A way to avoid even greater costs down the road.
Precisely. And the potential economic benefits of fusion, like cheaper energy and reduced reliance on fossil fuels, could outweigh the upfront costs many times over.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the cost of fusion research itself,
Right.
but the cost of not pursuing
Exactly.
this potentially game-changing technology. But even if we can afford it,
Yeah.
are there ethical considerations we need to be aware of?
It's a great question.
It's often touted as a clean and safe energy source. But are there any potential downsides or risks?
Well, it's great you're thinking about the ethical side of things.
Yeah.
While fusion is inherently safer than fission, there are always potential risks with any new technology.
Right.
For one, the high-energy neutrons produced in fusion reactions.
Okay.
They can damage the materials inside the reactor, which leads to radioactive waste.
So even though fusion produces less radioactive waste than fission,
Right.
it's not entirely waste-free.
That's correct. It's something we need to manage carefully.
Right.
And then there's the issue of potential misuse.
Okay.
While fusion is primarily seen as an energy source, the technology could theoretically be used for military applications.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it's a serious concern. The immense energy released by fusion could potentially be harnessed for destructive purposes. So international regulations and safeguards will be crucial to prevent the proliferation of fusion weapons.
That's a sobering thought.
It is.
It highlights the responsibility that comes with developing such powerful technologies.
Absolutely. The potential benefits of fusion are enormous, but we need to be mindful of the potential risks as well, and proceed with caution and a commitment to ethical development.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored the science of fusion, the potential benefits and challenges,
Right.
and even the ethical considerations.
Yes.
It's clear that fusion is a complex and multifaceted topic.
It is. It really is. But it's also a topic that captures the imagination and inspires hope for a cleaner, more sustainable future.
Absolutely. And as we move forward, I think it's important to remember that the future of fusion is not predetermined.
That's a great point.
It's a future we're actively creating. Through our choices, our investments, and our shared vision for a better world.
Absolutely.
But for today, I think we've done enough deep diving for one session.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but my brain is starting to feel a bit like that superheated plasma we were talking about.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But hopefully this deep dive has given our listeners a good foundation to understand the complexities of fusion and the incredible potential it holds.
And maybe spark some curiosity to learn even more. Who knows? Maybe one of our listeners will be the one to finally unlock the secrets of fusion energy.
Now that would be a story for the ages.
It would indeed. But for now, we'll have to leave it there.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of fusion.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep those fusion fires burning.
Absolutely. It's pretty amazing to think that we might be on the cusp of a real energy revolution.
I know, right? It feels like we're living in a sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
But it's actually happening.
It is.
We've been talking about these big players, though. Governments and international collaborations.
Right.
What about the smaller guys?
Yeah.
Are there any private companies making waves in the fusion scene?
Oh, you bet. In fact, there's been an explosion of private companies jumping into the fusion game lately.
Really?
Yeah, they're bringing fresh perspectives and some serious funding to the table.
That's so cool. It's like the Wild West of energy innovation.
It really is.
Can you give us some examples of these companies?
Sure.
What they're up to?
Absolutely. One company that's been making headlines is Helion Energy.
Okay.
They're developing a fusion reactor that uses a really unique approach called pulsed magnetic confinement.
Pulsed magnetic confinement.
Yeah.
Break that down for me.
Okay.
How is it different from the giant donut-shaped tokamaks?
Right. So tokamaks use a continuous magnetic field to contain the plasma, right?
Uh-huh.
Pulsed magnetic confinement is different.
Okay.
Imagine hitting a golf ball with a series of quick taps instead of one long swing.
Okay.
You got it.
Yeah.
So Helion's approach uses a series of magnetic pulses to compress and heat the fuel. Kind of like those quick taps on the golf ball.
Okay. I love that analogy.
Okay.
So what's the advantage of this pulsed approach?
Yeah.
Does it make the fusion reaction more efficient?
That's the idea. Helion claims their method can reach those crazy high temperatures and pressures we need for fusion, but with less energy input overall.
Okay.
So if they're right,
Yeah.
it could be a game changer in terms of efficiency.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are there any other companies out there using this pulsed approach?
There are. Commonwealth Fusion Systems, or CFS,
Okay.
is another one to watch.
Right.
They've actually teamed up with MIT
Wow.
to develop a compact fusion reactor that they believe could be commercially viable within the next decade.
Wait, within the next decade?
Yeah.
That's incredibly ambitious.
It is.
Are they really that close?
Well, they've made some serious strides. They recently built and tested a super powerful magnet
Okay.
that's a core component of their reactor design. It's a big deal in the fusion world.
It sounds like things are really heating up in the private fusion sector.
Yeah.
You've got these big international efforts like ITER,
Right.
and then these nimble startups racing to make fusion a reality.
It's an exciting time to be following fusion research, that's for sure.
It is. It really feels like we're on the cusp of a breakthrough.
I think so.
Okay, so we've talked about tokamaks, lasers, and this pulsed magnetic confinement. Are there any other wild and crazy approaches to fusion?
Well, there are a few. One that's pretty far out there is called a stellarator.
Stellarator.
Yeah.
Okay, you have my attention. What's the story with that?
All right, so stellarators also use magnetic fields to confine plasma,
Okay.
but the shape of the reactor is mind-bendingly complex
Okay.
compared to a tokamak.
Right.
Instead of a simple donut shape, stellarators have these twisted magnetic field lines
Okay.
that are supposed to create a more stable plasma.
So it's like a tokamak on a roller coaster.
That's one way to put it.
So the idea is that this crazy geometry helps prevent those pesky plasma instabilities that plague tokamaks.
Exactly. That's the hope.
It sounds promising.
Well,
Are there any accelerator projects actually happening right now?
there are. The Wendelstein 7X experiment in Germany is a major one.
Wow.
It's really amazing to see all these different ideas being thrown at the fusion problem.
Yeah.
It shows how determined we are to crack this thing.
I know it's inspiring, but I want to step back for a minute
Okay.
and think about the bigger picture. Let's zoom out beyond the science and the tech.
Right.
If we could actually achieve practical fusion energy, how would it change the world?
Yeah.
What are the societal implications we need to be thinking about?
That's such an important question. The impact of fusion energy on society would be enormous.
Yeah.
We're talking about a potential paradigm shift in how we power our world,
Right.
our economies, and even how we interact with the environment.
It sounds like we're stepping into a whole new era, like something out of Star Trek.
It really does.
But is that vision really realistic, or is it just wishful thinking?
I think it's within reach.
Okay.
Fusion has the potential to solve some of the biggest problems humanity is facing,
Uh-huh.
but it's going to take more than just scientific ingenuity.
Okay.
We need political will, international cooperation, and a shared commitment to building a sustainable future.
So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how we choose to use it,
Right.
about the kind of world we want to create.
Exactly. Fusion energy is a powerful tool, and we need to wield it responsibly.
Right.
We need to think about the ethical implications,
Uh-huh.
the economic impacts,
Right.
and ensure that everyone benefits from this incredible source of clean energy.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah,
It's a reminder that technology is only as good as the intentions behind it.
it really is.
Okay, let's dig into some of those societal implications.
Right.
How do you see fusion energy potentially reshaping the world?
Okay,
Let's start with the geopolitical landscape.
sure.
How would abundant clean energy change the balance of power between nations?
Well, it could be a game changer. You know, access to energy resources is a major source of conflict and tension in the world.
Sadly, that's been a constant throughout history.
It has. But imagine a world where every country has access to clean, abundant energy.
Go.
Regardless of their natural resources,
Right.
fusion could level the playing field,
Uh-huh.
reduce those energy-driven conflict,
Right.
and foster greater cooperation.
It's like that old saying, if you want peace, work for justice. In this case, it's energy justice.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about ensuring that everyone has a fair shot at a prosperous future, not just the countries that happen to be sitting on oil reserves.
It sounds like a recipe for a more peaceful and stable world.
It does, doesn't it?
But are there any potential downsides?
To this geopolitical reshuffling.
Yeah. Could new power struggles emerge?
You know, that's a valid concern. It's possible that countries that are technologically advanced in fusion could gain a new kind of leverage on the global stage.
Right.
We need to be mindful of those potential power dynamics and ensure that the development and distribution of fusion technology is done equitably and benefits all of humanity,
Right.
not just a select few.
It makes sense. It's like any powerful new technology. It has the potential for both good and bad.
Exactly.
We need to be careful and thoughtful about how we manage it.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to the economic side of things.
All right.
We've talked about lower energy costs. But how else could fusion reshape our economies?
Well, the ripple effects are hard to even fathom.
Okay.
Cheap, abundant energy could unleash a wave of innovation and economic growth.
Wow.
We'd see new industries spring up, existing industries transformed, and a surge in job creation across a wide range of sectors.
Okay.
From manufacturing and construction to research and development.
Sounds like we're talking about a whole new industrial revolution.
It really does.
So the transition to a fusion-based economy
Right.
would be a massive undertaking,
It would.
requiring huge investments in infrastructure and workforce development.
Yes. But the potential rewards are so enormous that it's hard not to get excited.
Yeah, it's a daunting prospect, but also incredibly exciting.
I agree.
Speaking of a sustainable future, let's not forget the environmental implications.
Right.
That's obviously a major driver behind the push for fusion energy.
Yes.
So how could it reshape our relationship with the planet?
Well, it's hard to overstate the potential impact on the environment. Fusion doesn't produce greenhouse gases.
Right.
So widespread adoption could be a major weapon in the fight against climate change.
It's the dream.
It is.
To finally break free from our addiction to fossil fuels and move towards a truly clean energy future.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just climate change.
Oh.
Fusion could also help us tackle other environmental problems associated with traditional energy sources, like air and water pollution.
Yeah, so it's a win-win for the planet and for human health.
It really is.
But it's important to remember that fusion isn't a magic bullet
Right.
for all our environmental problems.
You're absolutely right. It's not a cure-all. Even with fusion, we still need to address issues like deforestation, biodiversity loss, and plastic pollution. It's about taking a holistic approach to sustainability that goes beyond just energy.
So it's a vital piece of the puzzle?
Yes.
But we still need to work on the other pieces as well.
Exactly. It's about making fundamental changes in our consumption patterns, lifestyles, and values.
Okay, we've talked about the big picture stuff, geopolitics, economics, the environment.
Right.
But what about the impact on individuals?
Yeah.
How could fusion energy change our everyday lives?
That's a great question. I think the most immediate impact would be in our homes and workplaces.
Okay.
Just imagine a world with clean and affordable electricity available 24/7.
No more sky-high energy bills or worrying about blackouts.
Exactly. It would be transformative.
Oh.
And it would unlock so much potential for innovation.
Yeah.
Imagine what we could achieve in transportation, communication, entertainment. The possibilities are endless.
It's mind-boggling to think about.
It is.
But with every major technological shift,
Yeah.
there are also disruptions.
Right.
Could fusion lead to any negative consequences for individuals?
That's a good point.
Well,
you know, the transition to a fusion-based economy would inevitably cause some disruptions.
Okay.
Jobs would be lost in traditional energy sectors.
Right.
And we'd need to retrain and support those workers.
So it's not just about creating new jobs.
No.
It's also about ensuring that the transition is fair and equitable for everyone.
Absolutely. We need to be mindful of potential social inequalities and make sure that the benefits of fusion energy are shared widely.
Right. It's like any big change.
Yeah.
We need to manage it carefully and make sure that everyone benefits.
Exactly. It's about creating a future that's not just technologically advanced, but also socially just and sustainable for all.
And speaking of creating a better future, There's one final aspect of fusion energy that I think is crucial.
Okay.
The role of education and public awareness.
That's a great point. We can't just leave this to the scientists and engineers.
Right.
We need to bring the public along on this journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we want to build a world powered by fusion, we need to start by educating people about this technology and its potential.
I couldn't agree more. We need to cultivate a sense of wonder and possibility, but also promote scientific literacy.
Right.
So that people can make informed decisions about our energy choices.
It's about empowering people to be active participants in shaping our energy future.
Yes. And initiatives like the Deep Dive are a perfect example of how we can bridge the gap between science and society.
Right.
Making complex topics like fusion accessible and engaging for everyone.
Yeah, it's about democratizing knowledge and making sure everyone has a voice in the conversation about our energy future.
Exactly. And that's essential if we want to create a future where fusion energy benefits all of humanity. It really does feel like we're standing at the dawn of a new era.
I know, right? It's mind-blowing to think we could be so close to cracking the code of clean, limitless energy.
And it's really striking me how many different ways people are going about it.
Yeah.
We've got these huge international collaborations like ITER,
Right.
all these private companies pushing the boundaries, and researchers all over the world exploring every possible avenue.
Yeah, it's like the world has finally woken up to the potential of fusion
I think so.
and decided to just throw everything at it.
Yeah, and that's what gives me hope.
Yeah.
It's not just one team or one country working on this.
Right.
It's a global effort.
Yeah.
A collective pursuit.
It really feels like humanity is coming together to solve one of its greatest challenges.
And it speaks to the power of human ingenuity and collaboration.
Yeah. Amidst all this amazing technology, though, we should remember the human element
Oh, absolutely.
behind all these equations. Experiments and giant machines
Right.
are passionate individuals driven by a desire to make a real difference.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. I'm constantly in awe of the scientists, the engineers, and the researchers who dedicate their lives to this, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
They're the unsung heroes of the fusion story.
They really are. And their work could have a profound impact on billions of people.
It could.
It's a responsibility they carry with incredible dedication. But, their efforts alone aren't enough.
Right.
We need everyone to be part of this.
We do.
To understand the challenges and opportunities.
Exactly.
And that's where the deep dive comes in, right?
Absolutely.
We're trying to make these complex topics accessible, engaging for everyone.
We need to break down those barriers between science and society.
Yeah.
Empower people with knowledge so they can be active participants in shaping our energy future.
And to spark their imaginations.
Yes.
Fusion isn't just about equations and reactors.
No.
It's about a future where energy is no longer a constraint.
Right.
And we can power our world cleanly and sustainably.
It's about dreaming big and believing that we can create a better future for ourselves and generations to come.
Speaking of dreaming big, I want to come back to a question we posed earlier.
Okay.
Knowing what you now know about fusion,
Yeah.
do you believe it's a realistic solution to our future energy needs?
Well, that is the ultimate question, isn't it? And honestly, after all this, I'd have to say, yeah. I think fusion has the potential to be the game changer we've been waiting for. The challenges are still huge.
Yeah.
But the recent progress, the global momentum,
Right.
it gives me hope that we're on the right track.
Okay.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But I really do think with continued effort, investment, and collaboration, we can make this dream a reality.
And what a dream it is. A future where clean, abundant energy powers our world.
It is.
Where we've overcome one of humanity's greatest challenges.
Yeah.
It's a future worth striving for.
It is.
It's a future that's within our grasp if we dare to reach for it.
That's beautifully said. And it's a message I hope our listeners will carry with them long after this.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, we say stay curious, stay informed, and keep those fusion fires burning.
Yes.
This is just the beginning of an incredible journey, and we're all in this together. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive, and until next time, keep exploring the world with open minds and a thirst for knowledge.
What did you think of this week's episode? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to join us next time as we dive even deeper. And as always, stay curious, because you never know what discoveries are just around the corner.